Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I am Stephen Ruderman with Stephen Rissotto, and welcome to episode 2 of the Bye Bye Baby Bonanza. We are a week into the baseball season, and on what should have been the original trade deadline had this been a normal 162 game season. We are celebrating the fact that we are a week through the season. A lot has gone on as teams are competing for 16 playoff spots. We did our first show last week, the night before they announced that they were going to the 16 team playoff format. They announced it on the day of the first two openers last Thursday. So we had no expectations for the Giants coming in, but then they announced that it's going to be 16 teams. It's like, hey, we have a shot, and well, still probably unlikely that the Giants will be a part of the postseason party. But a lot going on. It's a 60 game sprint season. But first, let's get the negatives out of the way. We want to make this a happy show. We want to make this a fun show. So we're going to get the bad stuff out of the way early. We do have to talk about COVID. The 3 weeks of summer camp, spring training 2.0, which I don't get why it wasn't spring training 2.0. That would have been so cool. Instead, you have the basic summer camp logo. Oh, that's right, because it's sponsored by Camping World. That went really well. And then all of a sudden we had an outbreak with the Marlins. And apparently, according to Bob Nightingale, whose reporting is not the most accurate, the 2 or 3 Marlins players, I think two players went out, got it at a club, COVID that is, and then spread it to 2 more players. So, that alone's already bad enough where you leave your hotel. And I don't think there's any rule. Is there a rule barring players from the hotel?
No,
Steven?
I don't think so. There's no bubble, so I think it's a free-for-all, to be honest.
Gotta make that rule. So then they infect 2 more players. They find out Sunday morning that 2 more players are infected. So it's like you gotta postpone the game. And at the very worst case scenario at that point, you're going to be postponed through Tuesday. You can get back on the field no later than Wednesday. But no, Don Mattingly takes a group vote via a group text. They play the game anyway. So, now it's 8 more guys that test positive the next day. And the team is shut down through at least Sunday and probably into next week. People are now also freaking out because the 2 players on the Cardinals tested positive. Now, the good news is, and I think this will be controlled, the league's doing to the Cardinals what they should have done with the Marlins, and that is they're postponing tonight's game. And I do sincerely believe that they will control that outbreak, as we've already seen a couple of times. We saw Juan Soto test positive last Thursday, and they got him out. They really should have postponed the Nats game that night, but they didn't because that was the opener. But they still got that under control. I know. Did Flowers and Tyler Flowers and Travis d'Arnaud, the Braves, actually test positive, or was it just symptoms?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look. I'll get on that.
It was 2 catchers. They had to pull them both, and they were able to control. Nothing happened with the Braves. Salvador Perez, he tested positive about 3 weeks ago. They pulled him. Nothing happened with the Royals. So other than the Marlins, what sucks about this is everyone saying, "Oh, it's not going to work out." If it wasn't for the utter stupidity of the Marlins, this would be working out for the most part. And there's a lot of blame here. Don Mattingly especially, and if anyone who has watched Don Mattingly manage over the years, whether it's with the Dodgers or the Marlins, you can know the guy is not exactly the brightest bulb in the pot, and he made a very poor had a very poor lapse in judgment on Sunday, to say the very least. But also, Manfred could have stepped in and canceled that game, and he didn't. And the thing is, the league has pretty strict policies that have worked for the most part, but they still need to be even stricter, and they need to be enforced. And one of the problems, and I noticed this, the exhibition game started 13 days ago on the 18th. On the 18th. And starting either last Monday or last Tuesday, so it would be the 3rd or 4th exhibition games, I noticed players stopped wearing masks as much, and there seemed to be this kind of lax attitude, as in, "Hey, we're gonna be fine. No one got sick," and then all of a sudden, the Marlins outbreak happens, and the Phillies, because they played the Marlins over the weekend, they've had to cancel their games through the week. I'm pretty certain the Phillies will be back on the field Monday or Tuesday, whenever their first scheduled game is after Sunday. But there was this really shouldn't have happened. And it's not a matter of can the league get the season in. Are they able to? Is it doable? Absolutely, it's doable, and it could be doable with minimal problems. It's will they make the effort to do so? And what really needs to happen is the following needs to happen: players cannot leave their hotels on the road. Um, Testing every day instead of every other day. Everyone, all tier one, tier one, of course, is basically the personnel, the on-field personnel, the people with the team, players, coaches, umpires, managers, training staff, you name it. Everyone who's on the field. So it'd probably be, I don't know, are groundskeepers tier one or tier two? I don't know. No, they're tier two. Everyone needs to be wearing a mask at all times. You see some of these umpires, they're doing it. They got the mask underneath. Let me see. Where is
And just to clear up the whole Braves thing, Stephen.
do I have my if they can wear a mask under this mask, they can wear a mask and put this mask over it, and it's 95 degrees outside, and you've got shades on, the mask covering your mouth, and then you got this mask on, and you've got the hard West Vest chest protector and the shin guards underneath your clothes. If they can do it, you can do it. All the players can do it. Everyone needs to be wearing masks on the field at all times. And you take those steps, and social distancing as well. You take those steps, you're going to get through the rest of the season with very little problem, with very few problems. I honestly do believe that.
Yeah, completely agree. And just to clear up the thing with the Braves, Flowers and d'Arnaud never did test positive, but they had symptoms reportedly, and I believe they are both active now.
Good to hear.
So,
What was I going to say?
but I agree with you. I think that, stuff needs to be tightened up a little bit. And I think a lot of managers have taken this Marlins situation and looked at it and said, hey, we can't be like them. We can't do stupid stuff, go out to strip clubs at night. This isn't the NBA. This isn't the NHL. We're not in a bubble. So we have to take even more precaution than them because they're in the bubble and we're not. That's the mentality that they need to have.
Absolutely. But I also believe that the Marlins, the question is, 18 guys, and they're going to be bussed back to Miami. And whoever's taking that job needs to be paid a substantial amount of money. They'll probably pay them the minimum wage, because this is how big corporations work. At what point do you just shut their season down? And I mean this. I feel like this is one of those things where, not because of the outbreak, but because of their stupidity, I feel like the Marlins do need to be punished for this. And I get that I know the league can't do this, but why not just end the Marlins season? You know what? And it's like, that's your punishment. You have to be, you're the only team, not only in baseball, the only team in the four major professional sports not playing. And you're watching the rest of your league compete for a playoff spot. And that will send a message to everyone. Like, you don't want to join the Marlins and being like the only teams in, sitting out while the rest of the league plays. It's like being eliminated from the postseason or being eliminated when the regular season ends. As in the Marlins, you know what, Marlins, you screwed up. You're sitting out the rest of the season. You guys can prepare for next season, but you're going to sit out because you broke the rules, and you're going to watch the 29 other teams compete for the playoffs and a world championship. I think that's the best way to go about this.
Well, I think if we were to shut down their season, or if Major League Baseball were to shut down their season, I don't think it would be a disciplinary action. I think it would be more so safety. So not punishing them, but making sure they're safe. Because, the only reason, and it would really screw up the entire schedule if a team is gonna end up getting out of this season, out of this 60-game sprint, that is. And if we were to shut baseball down as a whole, it would not be based on the Marlins. It would not be the Marlins screwing it up for everybody. Because if you take a look, the West
Mm,
Coast, nothing's going on. Nothing's going on the West Coast. And, it's going to really take 5 or 6 of these teams to come up with Marlins-esque situations in order for this whole operation to shut down.
And the thing is, with the Cardinals, they have 2 guys test positive. That's not going to happen because they already postponed tonight's game, and they will postpone tomorrow and Sunday's game should more guys test positive. My bet is they'll be able to play tomorrow and Sunday, but the Cardinals are not going to have a Marlins-esque situation, that's for sure, because the league did what they should have done. And they probably wouldn't have done this if it wasn't for the Marlins situation, but they know they can't have a repeat of what happened with the Marlins, so they can tonight's game right away.
And you know what? If a negotiation was done earlier between the Players Association and Major League Baseball, like a month earlier, or when initial talks first started, if something was come to a conclusion very quickly, we wouldn't have a problem. We wouldn't have this problem of when would they fit these games in, because there'd be enough time without going into December, late November.
Well, the
So
problem was
now it's becoming a scheduling conflict to get these games in.
the problem was that when they should have been negotiating health and safety protocols, the commissioner and the league were trying to back out of a previously agreed to deal on the finances. And so basically they just kind of, I would grade the health and safety protocols that baseball's coming up with as a B plus, but you have to have an A triple plus. And baseball does need to make it an A triple plus, which is why I mentioned the daily testing, social distancing, and masks at all times on the field. Nobody's allowed to leave the hotel, etc.
Yeah, the hotel should definitely be enforced. And it also depends on the state of the hotel. Maybe they would have to rent out the whole hotel. Some hotels still aren't even in service. So, it would really depend on that.
And some hotels apparently are having weddings, but it's like anyone who leaves the hotel gets fined or suspended. I would say suspended, possibly even the rest of the season. Like you're done. You know what? You left the hotel, sit it out. You can go play next year.
Now, what about after the home team?
That's going to be a problem because you can't really be big brother with a home team, but there should be rules, like as in you can go to like a local supermarket and that's it. Or maybe not even sure you're allowed. Stephen Ruderman back here with Stephen Rissotto. I'd like to apologize to our viewers here on episode 2 of the Bye Bye Baby Bonanza. My internet here in Berkeley, what's weird, I split time between Berkeley and Sacramento, and I just got my internet in Sacramento fixed. And as I go back to Berkeley, where I'm renting a room, so it's really not in my control here, now this internet's having issues.
Can't catch a break, huh? Xfinity!
It's 2020, folks. Just welcome to 2020. So I apologize to everyone. I apologize to my live audience on Periscope. I apologize to our viewers here on the Bye Bye Baby Bonanza. And I apologize to Steven, our great producer, who had to fix this. Okay. I take full responsibility for this. I think we were talking about the distancing and how the COVID procedures and how they need to enforce a bubble at the hotels. They need to do it with players at home too. And look, a lot of the Giants players and a lot of players rent out condos and high rises. And so that would be pretty much just like a hotel. You can have food delivered to you. There are things like DoorDash and Grubhub, and Steven Rissotto drives for DoorDash.
I do. Yes.
Hey, maybe Steven can deliver food to the players.
I will be completely down to deliver food to, Mike Trout whenever you get off paternity leave and you're in the Bay Area for whatever reason. Hit me up. I'll give you some Chick-fil-A and I'll DoorDash that.
That's our friend and colleague Taylor Worth's favorite chain, correct?
Yes.
The Angels will be in town August 20th and 21st, though I believe Trout would probably be on paternity leave by then.
I will circle that.
Get Mike Trout some Chick-fil-A. Is Mike Trout a Chick-fil-A fan?
I don't know. I just made it up.
Oh, all right. So I really don't think they're going to shut down the season. One thing about Major League Baseball is they know how to save face. And the thing is, if this season turns out to be a bust and they have to shut down again, it's because of the league's incompetence. And I think Rob Manfred knows, or at least he has to know. I believe he would know that if this shuts down again, it would only be because of his incompetence. And if it does, that would be the end of him. I
No
just don't
doubt.
see how he survive. I think he'd get forced out. I still think there's a chance he's going to get forced out regardless because I think he's kind of out of control anyway. I know people say, oh, the owners or the commissioner works for the owners, and that was certainly the case with Bud Selig. But I feel like with Manfred seems to me to want to consolidate powers from the owners and have power over them. That seems to me the case to me. I don't know what your take is on that, Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, he's the commissioner of baseball, so I think he does, try to please the owners. I think that is maybe not officially part of his job description, but he definitely thinks, he definitely plays as it is. And they have the power to vote him out, so I don't know why he wouldn't want to please them. Um, but he's an interesting guy, not really a baseball background, more of a law background, and doesn't have the background that we saw from Bud Selig, the last commissioner, in terms of, Selig was an owner, Selig was a baseball fan per se. Manfred, I don't get that vibe from him. I don't get the vibe. I get the law vibe from him. He's done a great job negotiating past CBAs, negotiating, investigating the biogenesis scandal. But, commissioner of baseball is a whole different level, and you need to have a feel for the sport. And I just don't think that that's there right now with him.
Yeah, and having a labor lawyer run the sport itself, I mean, it's happened before. This is not a new thing. Adam Silver in the NBA was their labor lawyer. And actually, he's liked by everyone. He's liked by the fans, the players. Bowie Kuhn was also the baseball's labor lawyer before he became commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
So this is not a new thing, but it's still very odd to me that you would have your labor lawyer. Like, it's just like a business. Maybe I'm wrong. I've got people on Periscope right now. Sean, you might know a little bit about more of a business background. My friend Sean, who's on Periscope right now. I don't think companies generally turn their attorneys into executives or CEOs. Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like that's something that generally doesn't happen. And speaking of the league and speaking of the bureaucratic crapola, new rule just announced about a half an hour ago or about 45 minutes ago. 7-inning doubleheaders beginning tomorrow. Mr. Rissotto, your thoughts?
I think, it's I really do hope that this is not new. It is new, but I really do hope this does not stick into future years. Again, this year, I'm cool with anything. I think most of the baseball population is kind of feels that way. Like, the 3 batter minimum seems like it's here to stay. The runner at second base, most people either hate it or like it. But either way, they're saying they wouldn't mind if it stays or goes the following year. And next, this is a year to test some of that stuff out. Players, I feel like wouldn't have a problem with 7-inning doubleheaders. Managers wouldn't have a problem with it. But, I do have a baseball traditional side to me, and it doesn't like it. It doesn't like the sound of 7 innings. However, to make up games, I think that it would definitely be an option to make up some of these games that were lost by the Phillies, by the Marlins, Cardinals, Brewers, whatever team needs to make up games. I think it would work.
And that will start tomorrow with the Brewers and the Cardinals from Miller Park in Milwaukee. There was a doubleheader between the Indians and I don't think it was the Royals, but but it was 9 innings on both sides. So tomorrow with the as I mentioned, the Cardinals and the Brewers doubleheaders games will be 7 innings apiece. And as we continue on the controversial side of the league, and actually Sean points out I am wrong about something I mentioned earlier. It does happen where companies will make their lawyers into like CEOs and executives, and that to me, I'm just sorry. I get that it does happen, but it just doesn't feel right.
Well, maybe it's some kind of reward for doing a good job in the law department. After all, Manfred was coming off that big time negotiation with the Players Association, so maybe that was Rob Manfred or Bud Selig's way of saying, "Great job. Maybe we're going to run in the labor issues coming up in the coming years. You're the best guy to negotiate those, so let's put you in the top spot." Maybe that's what it was. I don't know. We'll never know.
Yeah, it was Sealy's hand pick. I wonder what Selig thinks about that now.
Yeah,
Actually,
that would be interesting. Maybe we could get Bud on the show.
Buddy. We actually should have mentioned this first, since I said, speaking of league bureaucratic crapola, Joe Kelly. So we all know the big story in baseball prior to COVID was the Houston Astros. And, Mike Fiers, the disgruntled, reliever who was left off the 2017 postseason roster, blew the whistle on that. What actually happened was he didn't make the postseason roster for the Astros in 17, signed with the Tigers in 18, traded to the A's at the deadline in 18, alerts Bob Melvin, the manager of the A's, to this because the A's and the Astros were both in the American League West. And the A's were actually in contention. Wait, was it last year, 18, or last year, in which the A's were actually in contention with the Astros for the division? I think it was 18, I believe, in which the A's were kind of neck and neck with the Astros for the division. And Melvin alerted the league office. Nothing happened. So a year goes by, and last November, right after the Astros were back in the World Series and ended up losing in 7 to the Nationals, Fiers blew the whistle to, I think, Ken Rosenthal.
Yes.
And then that turned into a whole, whole circus show. And AJ Hinch and what was it, Lunau, they were suspended for a season. Same with Alex Cora, who went to manage the 18 Red Sox, who won a championship with them. And it sounds like Cora was the kind of the ringleader. He was the bench coach for the 17 Astros, went to the Red Sox in 18, managed them to a championship. But none of the players got suspended. So the Dodgers and the Astros were originally not supposed to play each other on the 162-game schedule this year, but because they are playing a 60-game schedule with really 3 hubs, the Dodgers and Astros do play each other. They played each other this week, and in the 7th inning, Joe Kelly, who actually pitched against the Dodgers and dominated them in the 18 World Series as a Red Sox, but was on losing end in 17 as a Red Sox when the Astros beat them in the division series. He threw at Bregman, and he threw at Carlos Correa. The problem with that is that he threw up near the head, not at the head, but near the head. And when you're doing that, you should be throwing at the waist. You're trying to leave a bruise, not a broken bone. But they suspended him 8 games. And I don't think the 8-game suspension has to do with him throwing the upper back, which is what it was with both Bregman and Correa. And, then afterwards, and Carlos Correa is kind of someone who kind of runs his mouth a lot. I'm not going to lie. I don't have much respect for Carlos Correa, especially what he said about Bellinger's comments during spring training. I've never cared for Carlos Correa. I just think the guy is kind of full of himself. He's a prima donna. And so he's yelling at Kelly, and Kelly's like literally stuck his tongue out at him like you would see an 8-year-old do on the playground, or like a 6-year-old. And then the bench is cleared. Kelly gets suspended for 8 games. And I don't think this has to do with the throwing at him. I think it has to do a lot with the fact that you can't have a big benches clearing incident, with games this season with COVID. But I think it has mainly to do with the fact that, and Manfred said this back in February, that any retaliation against the Astros would not be tolerated. So that's right. You get to cheat your way to a world championship, but anyone who throws at them in retaliation, they get suspended. Okay, got it. Should Kelly have been suspended? Yes. But for 8 games, absolutely not. And the Astros should have gotten far worse. I mean, I feel like guys like Bregman and Altuve and Correa, who I think were 3 of the main guys involved in this, should have also been suspended for the season. Stephen,
Yeah.
your thoughts?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting debate, and I've seen a lot of people's takes on it, um, as we've kind of explored what has happened here. I understand sending a message. I understand it. I understand hitting him in the behind, hitting him in the butt, hitting him in the hip, hitting him in the back. But once you go up, that's not somewhere where you want to mess with. And like you mentioned, I agree with you. I do believe Joe Kelly should have gotten a suspension. But 8 games, I mean, that's a lot of games. And like you said, Major League Baseball, this isn't a lot of this doesn't have to do with Joe Kelly. A lot of this has to do with what could possibly come after Joe Kelly. And if anybody had any possible plans to hit any Astro hitters, this is what they would be looking at. And this is Major League Baseball saying, and I just had a Zoom call with my buddy Anderson Picard of MLB Daily Dish, and he said that Chris Young, who is now the one in charge of handing out disciplinary suspensions, this is his first time. This is his first disciplinary action given out. Used to be Joe Torre, no longer is. So, should have gotten a suspension. 8 games is a little bit too much. Dave Roberts said it was a little bit too much. But of course, Dave Roberts is going to say that. He's the manager. But I just don't think, he should have gotten a suspension, but 8 games is too much. And it's Major League Baseball sending a message saying, hey, this is what's going to happen if you try and mess with the Astros. And
because we're on their side.
None of the Astros players actually got suspended for the entire thing. So it is kind of weird. So I understand the frustration by fans, by the Dodgers, and we don't know for sure if the Dodgers were ever even going to win that World Series. That because they're saying, oh, they took the ring away from us. How would they know? How would we know? We can never go back and change that.
Right, and especially, I mean, I think the Dodgers would have won the series if they didn't cheat in the series. You look at Game 5 and the fact that every off-speed pitch Kershaw threw was met with contact. Well, not every, but every off-speed pitch in the zone was met with contact. They didn't swing and miss it one off-speed pitch. But the Yankees, there's a good chance the Yankees would have won the championship series, and it would have been the Yankees-Dodgers World Series without what happened. So you can't really say for sure who would have won the whole thing. The Red Sox, they were defeated in the division series. And so you got 3 teams, the Dodgers, the Yankees, and the Red Sox, who could have all said, hey, we could have won the World Series. That could have been us. But you can't really say who it was. So I think the best thing to do in that situation is put an asterisk next to the Astros championship. They could still have it, but you got to put an asterisk next to it, in my opinion.
And you know what? Even if there is no asterisk officially put next to it, there's definitely an unofficial one that people that knew the team, and this is something that's going to have to be passed down verbally through generations. And I think it will. I think everybody's going to kind of remember the 2017 Astros as a team that was cheating. And I think there is not going to be an official asterisk next to it because, baseball just doesn't have a history of doing that. But I think there will be an unofficial folk tale that will be passed down through generations about this team.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, it'll definitely be talked about in the next Ken Burns documentary. I mean, really, I think an asterisk only happened once when Ford Frick put an asterisk next to Maris's record, because he was friends with Claire Ruth and the Babe. Then Faye Vincent in 1991 did the right thing and removed that. But Joe Kelly, I don't think Kelly is the type that's a headhunter. I think he was trying to throw at him, but as we've seen on Twitter during quarantine, during the shutdown, Joe Kelly has command issues.
He does.
So he's not, as I said, I don't think he was aiming for the head. I think it was intentional, but not the head. but this guy should not be the guy who is throwing at batters for retaliation.
What about Kenley Jansen? He was on that team. Why don't
The
that's
Dodgers don't want to lose their closer. I think they view Kelly as, more of a low end bullpen guy. Had a miserable year last year.
well, that's another thing. Like Kelly has a right to be upset about this situation,
Absolutely.
but he wasn't on that team. I think it would be interesting if you had somebody on that team possibly do it instead of Joe
Mike
Kelly.
Fiers. When
Mike
did the Astros
Fiers.
play the A's?
Of course, he's on a different team now, though.
Oh, he's not on the A's anymore?
He's on the A's, but they don't.
They play the Astros.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting, especially if Fiers does get a start against them.
They play the Astros, what, like 9 or 10 times? So look out.
Yeah,
Oh, that's going to be ugly.
that is.
I wouldn't be surprised if like the league intervenes and says like, hey, you can't start Fiers against the Astros.
Mm-hmm. And maybe, and luckily there's a DH from Mike Fiers.
So they can't throw at him in return.
There's a lot of people in the league did not like what Fiers was doing.
Again, Dusty, you could hear Dusty saying, like, get up. Didn't he say effer? Didn't he call him an effer? Joe Kelly an effer. Like, get on the mound, effer.
Yeah, he did.
And, Dusty, here's the deal. Dusty, and I love Dusty, even though, I've never loved his managing his managerial strategies. He was still a good players manager and a guy players love playing for. And I don't think I don't think Dusty's okay with the cheating, but of course Dusty is their manager. He's got to defend his guys.
Mm-hmm.
Because Dusty was in the middle of it. But it does suck. I'm not going to lie. I was never comfortable with Dusty going to manage the Astros. It's like, come on, man, don't. And and Dusty wants a world championship so bad, and someone like him really deserves one. But it's just like, come on, man, don't go to the Astros. So anyway, I'm trying to think. Was there anything else we're mentioning about the Astros? Let's talk about the Giants, because we're Giants fans. The show's about both baseball and your San Francisco Giants, and about the rules. Last night, the Giants got their first look at the worst rule in baseball history, a runner starting at second base to start every half inning. Giants came back from down 6-2 to win Wednesday night's game. They came back from down 6-1 to tie last night's game. They went to the 10th. Tyler Rogers pitched a perfect 1-2-3 inning in the 9th. And then they start the runner at second base for the Padres in the 10th. And I just knew with an inexperienced young team that was going to be hard to navigate through. And I even texted my friend Vinny Sestone, a friend and colleague of Stephen and I's, and I said, this is going to be a 5-run inning. And they scored 5 before anyone was out, and Rogers was just absolutely rocked out there. And I know, Stephen, you like the rule, but I'm sorry, this isn't baseball. Argue with me, Stephen.
Yeah, I like the rule. I think that, and I like the rule, but with that being said, I don't mind if it doesn't return next year.
Which I really don't think it will.
Yeah. So I like the fact that pressure is applied. And I was talking with FP Santangelo Jr. about this last night. And I said, hey, I like the back and forth. I like the fact that the home team has to play the fun. Say, I'll give you a hypothetical. The away team, like, for example, last night, the away team gets that run home. Maybe not 5 runs home like last night with the Padres, but the away team gets that run home. Okay, now the home team's going up there, and they have to do everything perfect or they're going to lose. And it is a lot on the home team, and I understand the pressure that it's being put. You have to get the bunt down, you have to get the ball in the air, you have to drive in a run. It's pressure on the pitcher. First of all, the home pitcher, like we saw with Tyler Rogers. Yeah, it is weird starting an inning with a runner on second base for him, probably. But that doesn't mean he can't perform in that situation. If you can't perform in that situation, maybe you don't belong in the high-intensity roles. Maybe that's not a spot for you in the bullpen. And I like it. I played with this rule last summer, And it was back and forth for a couple of innings. This team would score a run, then we'd go ahead and score a run that inning. Then they'd score a run that inning, we'd score a run that inning. It was fun. It was a lot of pressure on both sides to produce. Maybe, like FP mentioned, maybe more pressure on the pitcher to make a good pitch, because the offense, the hitter at the plate knows that there's a guy there, and he knows that a ground ball to the right side wouldn't be a bad thing in that situation. So I like it, but everything has to go right if you want to win the game and under those circumstances.
Absolutely. And also, this was Rogers' second inning last night, and I'm not sure he's the guy who's made it go more than one inning.
Well, I also think Gabe Kapler forgot the rule. He didn't know the rule. From what I understand, and I have to go back and double check this, he was a little iffy on how the 3-batter minimum rule worked. So we saw a couple things weird with Gabe Kapler. We saw, and we're probably going to get into this in a bit, we saw the whole mound visit thing with him not knowing the rule with the mound visit. Andrew Bailey went out there, the pitching coach, and Kapler went out there when Bailey returned and tried to take out the pitcher. We saw that, but what was kind of underrated is I think Rogers went back out there for that inning because Kapler thought he had to face 2 more hitters. Because didn't he come in for the 9th? He got the out. Kapler, Kapler, I think, got confused by the rule. So,
which is an idiotic rule on its own, right?
It is, but it's also Kapler's job to know the rules and navigate through. And it's, from what I understand, Rogers was not supposed to be in that situation.
Right. And what's another problem with that, and this is why this rule is so awful, is we already saw Rogers, who impressed a lot last year, we already saw him get lit up in he got lit up in LA on opening day last Thursday, opening night. Then he gets lit up again last night, and he's kind of just left in there dry. And that's got to really mess with his confidence. And I still have hope in him, but man, that has got to sting for him to have 2 outings like this in just 8 days. What else was I going to mention? But yeah, Kapler, Bruce McGowan, who used to host the weekend pre and post games on KMBR back until around 2007 or 2008. He said it perfectly. He said that, actually, I think he did it until 04, 05, 06. Okay, I don't need to get it exactly correct. That's just me. He said this season's going to be a lab experiment for the Giants. He said this back in February. Having a coaching staff that really doesn't have as much playing experience as much as, basically getting degrees in stuff related to baseball. Guys who are under 40, guys who are young, who are younger than a lot of the players, combined with Ron Wotus. I know that is such a weird combination. You got all these young guys, and you got the old school guy in Ron Wotus. Love Ron. He should have been the manager. But, pulling guys after 4 innings, he pulled Cueto after 4 innings on opening day. Some of Kapler's managing has been making me scratch my head, but at the same time, Bruce Bochy from 2007 to 2011 managed really horribly. And let's not kid ourselves, especially in 2009. And yes, Bruce Bochy did become a great manager, but in 2009, Bochy completely overmanaged during our pennant race against the Rockies. And I truly believe we would have beaten the Rockies out if it wasn't for some of Bochy's blunders, because he did single-handedly cost us games with his managing that year. So that's why, you can't really go after Gabe Kapler yet. We went after Bochy for 4 years, and in year 4, he surprises us all and brings us our first world championship ever in San Francisco. So you really can't hold this against Gabe Kapler.
No, it's too small of a sample size. And I think we'll start to see it, in terms of how he's handled the pitching staff. I don't see that as a big deal. Some guys are still trying to get their pitch counts worked up and such. And I think you're starting to see a more regular pitching rotation. They're announcing their starters super late. And we just got word here that we did just get word that Sam Coonrod is going on the 10-day injured list, and the Giants have recalled lefty Sam Selman. So that is some news fresh off the beat here.
What Coonrod on the IL with?
He has a lat strain.
Hmm.
But yeah, like you mentioned, it's too early to judge Gabe Kapler. I don't think that it's something that, sure, it does. His reputation right now is pretty small as is, but it's still really early. We're a week in. It's really something that it's just not something that we could judge him on just yet.
Right. And this is a Giants team that we had no expectations for. Now, we did our show last week, the night before they announced that they were expanding the postseason from 10 to 16 teams. And that's one of those things where I'd blow a gasket on if it happened in a regular year. But I actually think it's pretty cool for this year. And so it's like, now the Giants have a shot. So, because you got to be around 500. But even despite some of the impressive wins, taking 2 in LA, the big comeback win Wednesday, and the almost comeback last night. Well, we did come back to tie it. I just feel like last night's loss was really demoralizing.
Yeah.
And for a young team, that's just going to be hard to get over.
Mm-hmm. Especially after the big win, with the Yastrzemski's 2 homers and having a loss like that. And here's some more breaking news via Jeff Passan of ESPN. He says, breaking, MLB Commissioner Rob Manfred told Players Association Executive Director Tony Clark today that if the sport does not do a better job of managing the coronavirus, it could shut down the season. So Rob Manfred pretty much now threatening Tony Clark. But that
what is this about? So what is this, more of a pissing contest between the league and the union?
Well, they're trying to make sure everything's safe, and I think honestly, Clark, Manfred, all the higher ups in the baseball industry, they can only do so much. They're not the ones playing. They're not the ones, if a guy on the Rockies, goes to a strip club, it's not really something that he can control right off the bat. These are something that organizations have to decide on, teams have to decide on. I don't know. It's really, really, really strange. That's for sure.
I still think they're getting the season in, and keep in mind, Manfred has a long history of bluffing. So, and it's like he's the one who's responsible for this, not the players. They're both responsible, but Manfred is more responsible and a lot more responsible for dealing with this than the players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that. Anyways, where were we? Giants?
I want to read the article now. I'm scared.
We'll definitely get into this in a future episode. So we have a viewer. I'm on Instagram Live right now. And Brendan says the Marlins need to do a better job not getting the virus. They should do more daily checks instead of one checkup. So that's coming from Brendan. And I agree.
The players need to stay in their hotels, and they need to wear masks and social distance at all times.
Yeah, that's part of it too.
And now they're saying it could be the multiple players briefed on the call fear that the season could be shut down as soon as Monday.
Wow.
If positive tests jump or if players continue not to strictly abide by the league's protocols. And that is true, that we've seen a lot of players not wear masks and not social distance. And
see, if this thing is shut down Monday, if the season is shut down Monday, that would be a total buzzkill. Number one, first and foremost, there's a whole side of the country doing this the right way. There's a whole side of the country that, we have to remember this is split up now. We have the eastern side of this and we have the western side of this. The western side of this is fine. It's the eastern side of this that is, are you going to take away everything based on the Marlins? What the Marlins
exactly. One team. And we're going to take away baseball. I think that is a little bit too much for me personally. One team screwing this entire operation up. And also, Major League Baseball should not have their foot on the gas that quickly.
we have to remember there's billions and billions of dollars on the table, millions of dollars on the table in terms of postseason revenue with these TV deals. More postseason games being televised, more the money for Major League Baseball. So I don't get why they would be so quick to pull the trigger on this.
Yeah, this is classic Manfred. Manfred and I'll guarantee you he's not going to shut down the season Monday, and he has no intent of doing it. Manfred has a long history. Manfred is always bluffs. He did so in 2016 when he threatened a lockdown upon the immediate conclusion of the CBA. He did so just last month when he threatened to cancel the season outright if the players filed a grievance, which he didn't do. Now, this is something where the players are going to need to abide by. And I think you will see the players this weekend abide by the rules.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the same time, I do believe Manfred's bluffing, but just better be safe than sorry. And I think you'll see players abide by the rules this weekend.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
But I think it's totally unfair and wrong to shut down the season because one team screwed up.
For sure.
If anything, shut down the Marlins season.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how that would look. For sure.
I mean, if they shut down the season because of the Marlins, I mean, the Marlins, every time they go on the road next year, fans are going to be waiting for them. And they're going to be vilified beyond belief if the season shut down.
The Marlins could be one of the most hated teams in the league.
There's a reason why I've always despised Don Mattingly. I mean, the guy is just, he really thinks that he's really full of himself. He's always been that way. And one thing that has become common, it's been common for a very long time, kind of the last 40 years, for Americans to not admit that they're wrong. But over the last 10 years, Americans have gone from not admitting they're wrong to doubling down when they're wrong. We've seen that with a lot of the younger managers, and Mattingly's one of those, where, I will keep doing this awful move to show them. Matheny did a lot of that too when he managed the Cardinals. And it is such a poor quality in a human being. It really is. And we can't blame Don Mattingly. I mean, I'm sorry. What was I saying? You can't punish the rest of the league for the stupidity of Don Mattingly.
No. Okay, if the rumors are true and this was going to get shut down Monday, it's going to be because one team, the Miami Marlins. That does not make any sense at all.
Yeah, no, doesn't. And because of one man's stupidity in Don Mattingly. Yeah. I mean, Mattingly will be a true villain if this thing gets shut down. And he will get booed at every stadium he goes to next year. And I'll be waiting for him at Oracle Park when the Marlins come to town next year. You better believe it.
And it was the guys that went to the strip clubs in Atlanta.
Was it actually a strip club?
It was an adult club or a bar, right? That was what happened, and then that's what caused the spread. And they should have never played the game against the Phillies. That's the bottom line. And, again, you have a whole side of the country doing this the right way, and they're going to get shut down, right? It just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
And Manfred is basically saying it's on the players when, yes, the players have screwed up, but it's really on you too, Manfred. Well, Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred told MLB Players Association Executive Director, I'm going to read the article from Passan. It's Passan, right?
Yes.
Major League Baseball Commissioner Rob Manfred told MLB Players Association Executive Director Tony Clark on Friday that if the sport doesn't do a better job of managing the coronavirus, it could shut down the season, sources familiar with the conversation told ESPN. The league and the players recognize the coming days are a critical juncture following an outbreak on the Miami Marlins in which 18 players and 2 coaches have tested positive for COVID-19. The 2 positive tests by St. Louis Cardinals players on Fridays exacerbated concerns inside the sport about the presence of the coronavirus and whether players are following Major League Baseball's protocols. and I think passing, like, this is a poorly written sentence here. Let me try and reread this. 2 positive tests by Cardinals players on Friday exacerbated concerns inside the sport about the presence of the coronavirus and whether players are following MLB's protocols and whether they are being followed properly to prevent outbreaks similar to Miami's. Should another outbreak materialize, Manfred, who has the power down the season, could move in that direction. Multiple players briefed on the call feared that the season could be shut down as soon as Monday if positive tests jump or if players continue not to strictly abide by the league's protocols. State and local governments have pressured baseball about players skirting the mandates outlined in the league's 113-page operations manual, sources told ESPN. Broadcasts that have shown players not wearing masks, high-fiving, and spitting have left government officials wondering how serious the players are taking the protocol, sources said. Further, there is concern about off-the-field choices, with one high-ranking official saying there are some bad decisions being made. The Cardinals game against the Milwaukee Brewers was postponed Friday and rescheduled to a doubleheader Saturday. Already, the Marlins and Phillies, who last played in Miami on Sunday, were missing scheduled games, leaving 20% of the league's Friday slate empty. The players, Steven, really do want to play. And the fact that his players are scared, I think this is definitely going to send a shockwave to the players. Like, hey, you know, as much as I don't like Manfred, and Manfred has screwed up himself on this, but Manfred, I hate to say this, is right. I mean, if you guys, you know, don't follow by the protocols, then we really have no other choice.
We have Brendan chiming in as well. He says, why can't MLB just suspend the player who does not apply by the rules? It would make
I
things
agree.
much easier. You agree
Why
with that?
punish the players? Most of the players seem to be wearing masks. Why punish the ones who aren't abiding?
Well, I think the players are kind of already punished by getting the virus, right? Getting COVID-19 is a
Yeah,
punishment.
but why not just set a mandate that everyone has to wear masks on the field, and if you don't, you're suspended and fined?
Well, here's another thing. In that article, it said that the Cardinals, the 2 cases, boosted Manfred's, didn't it say something like it boosted Manfred's reasoning?
Exacerbated. It exacerbated.
Exacerbated.
Yeah.
First of all, that should not be the case because
Exactly.
positive tests should be expected. Positive tests maybe not should be expected, but always should be feared. Okay, this happened. There's no bubble. NBA and NHL, they're doing this differently. There's no bubble in baseball. So they're testing already, and they're disappointed that positive tests are coming up when positive tests are going up all over the country, and they're shocked and they don't know what to do now that positive tests are coming in their sport. Like, I don't know how they could be surprised by this. It's really no surprise at all. This was going to happen. They should have.
I don't think there were going to be positive tests, but this outbreak was not going to happen.
The
And this,
Marlins outbreak maybe was not going to happen.
it could have and should have been avoided.
But 2 positive tests for the
Yeah.
Cardinals, that, you know.
These are the first positive tests for a team other than the Marlins, you know, since last Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what makes me think Manfred is bluffing because it's 2 tests on one team, and 2, Manfred has a very long history of bluffing. However,
so I think he's bluffing. Do you think Major League Baseball will continue next week?
yeah, deal.
Yes. Mostly because the postseason, you know, they're not going to give up the TV deals for the postseason that generates billions of dollars in revenue. They're not going to give that up, especially with the expanded postseason this year. They're not going to give it up, especially since there's one team that has had an outbreak.
And a team that wasn't even going to go to the postseason anyway. I also believe they will get the whole season through.
Yeah.
You?
I think they're going to barrel through it. I think they will. It's going to be interesting, though.
My friend Kenny says, hello, Steven. Steven? Which one of us is Steven? Which one of us is Steven? I'll go.
I don't know. But and I know we had some other stuff for this show. We're going to talk Joey Bart. We're going to talk Gabe Kapler. We're going to talk a little question. But looks like we're out of time.
Yeah.
You kind of want to
do Joey Bart real quick, or do you want to end it?
Let's end it. We'll talk Joey Bart next time because by then he might be up. But we'll check.
All right. We will have a show next week, and there will be baseball next week. For Stephen Rissotto, I'd like to thank Steven Risotto and RizzoCast for hosting. This has been the Bye Bye Baby Bonanza, episode 2. I'm Stephen Ruderman. Thanks for listening. Have a great day, everyone.